Hello, welcome to Emerald Lake. I'm so glad all the frogs are delivered now. The frogs are here. um, I have my first story picked out, and it has a very interesting title. But I'm glad to see Death Noah and Fetster in the chat. Hello. I was also surprised that I got to 70 followers last night, and I forgot to update that follower goal, but now I've got it updated. Would you guys like for me to just jump in? I think I can do that. Like I said, this first story has a very interesting title. Hi, Dad Noah. It's called The Terrible Head, which is fun. Alright, then I'll go ahead. It's not a very long one, but we'll see what it is. I have no idea. Alright. Of course, no worries, folks. It's usually quieter in my first stream of the day. At least that's the pattern so far. I don't mind if you're all quiet. I'm still just gonna say hi. Scratch Fury, thank you. I was actually just about to do that, but good catch. I actually have it already typed up. I usually have the first one ready to go. Oh, cool. That's a fun way to do that, of course. VR mini golf while listening to a VTuber. That's so funny. But yes, Scratch Fury, if there's other ones, you can totally remind me in the chat that I should get the title up. I really just do it because I think it makes it easier for when I upload to YouTube for that algorithm to like separate when each story starts. If there's a visual clue for YouTube to know when that happens, then it makes it easier, which will make it easier for viewers over there to be like, I don't care about the story, or like, I'm not here for the chats, I can't even see the chat, so why would I care when you're like chatty? That's why I want to put that up. So yes, heck yeah, give me a little, don't forget the title if you want to bug me if I start to do that. But alright, The Terrible Head. Once upon a time there was a king whose only child was a girl. Now the king had been very anxious to have a son, or at least a grandson, to come after him, but he was told by a prophet who he consulted that his own daughter's son should kill him. This news terrified him so much that he determined never to let his daughter be married, for he thought it was better to have no grandson at all than to be killed by his grandson. He therefore called his workmen together and bade them dig a deep, round hole in the earth, and then he had a prison of brass built in the hole, and then, when it was finished, he locked up his daughter. No man ever saw her, and she never saw even the fields and the sea, but only the sky and the sun, for there was a wide open window in the roof of the house of brass, so the princess would sit looking up at the sky and watching the clouds float across, and wondering whether she should ever get out of her prison. Now one day it seemed to her that the sky opened above her, and a great shower of shining gold fell through the window in the roof, and lay glittering in her room. Not very long after, the princess had a baby, a little boy, but when the king, her father, heard of it, he was very angry and afraid, for now the child was born that should be his death. Yet cowardly as he was, he had not quite the heart to kill the princess and her baby outright, but he had them put in a huge brass-bound chest and thrust out to sea, that they might either be drowned or starved, or perhaps come to a country where they would be out of his way. If anyone here has read Oedipus Rex, this is exactly the sort of thing that happens. Oh no, there's a prophecy that means I'm going to have awful things happen to me. I better just totally ruin the people closest to me, ruin their lives. They won't be unaware of things or maybe want revenge. No, that couldn't possibly make the prophecy happen. Never mind that. Anyway. So the princess and the baby floated and drifted in the chest on the sea all day and night, but the baby was not afraid of the waves nor the wind, for he did not know that they could hurt him, and he slept quite soundly. And the princess sang a song over him, and this was her song. Child, I seem to have one of those frogs in my throat. I don't know what's going on. Child, my child, how sound you sleep. Though your mother's care is deep, you can lie with heart at rest in the narrow brass-bound chest. In the starless night and drear, you can sleep and never hear billows breaking and the cry of the night, billows breaking and the cry of the night wind wandering by. In soft purple mantle sleeping, with your little face on mine, hearing not your mother weeping, and the breaking of the brine. Well, the daylight came at last, and the great chest was driven by the waves against the shore of an island. There was a brass-bound chest lay, with the princess and her baby in it, till a man of that country came past and saw it, and dragged it onto the beach. And when he had broken it open, behold, there was a beautiful lady and a little boy. So he took them home, and was very kind to them, and brought up the boy till he was a young man. Now, when the boy had come to his full strength, the king of that country fell in love with his mother, and wanted to marry her. But he knew that she would never part from her boy, so he thought of a plan to get rid of the boy, and this was his plan. A great queen of a country not far off was going to be married, and this king said that all his subjects must bring him wedding presents to give her, and he made a feast to which he invited them all, and they all brought their presents. Some brought gold cups, some brought necklaces of gold and amber, and some brought beautiful horses, but the boy had nothing, though he was the son of a princess, for his mother had nothing to give him. Then the rest of the company began to laugh at him, and the king said, "If you have nothing else to give, at least you might go and fetch the terrible head." The boy was proud and spoke without thinking, "Then I swear that I will bring the terrible head, if it may be brought by a living man, but of what head you speak I know not." Then they told him that somewhere, a long way off, there dwelt 3 dreadful sisters, monstrous, ogreish women, with golden wings and claws of brass, and with serpents growing on their heads instead of hair. Now these women were so awful to look on that whoever saw them was turned at once into stone. These are just gorgons. Okay, woohoo. Now it's seeming like Oedipus Rex is making sense. This is more the right era. And 2 of them could not be put to death, but the youngest, whose face was very beautiful, who, if you don't know, Medusa was supposed to be very, very beautiful. We need to read that story too eventually. Whose face was very beautiful, could be killed, and it was her head that the boy had promised to bring. You may imagine it was no easy adventure. When he heard all this, he was perhaps sorry that he had sworn to bring the terrible head, but he was determined to keep his oath. So he went from the feast where they all sat drinking and making merry, and he walked alone beside the sea in the dusk of the evening, at the place where the great chest, with himself and his mother in it, had been cast ashore. There he went and sat down on a rock, looking toward the sea, and wondering how he should go begin to fulfill his vow. Then he felt someone touch him on the shoulder, and he turned, and saw a young man like a king's son, having with him a tall and beautiful lady, whose blue eyes shone like the stars. They were taller than mortal men, and the young man had a staff in his hand with golden wings on it, and 2 gold serpents twisted around it. Okay, can we guess who that is? And he had wings on his cap and on his shoes. Yeah. He spoke to the boy and asked him why he was so unhappy. And the boy told him how he had sworn to bring the terrible head and knew not how to begin to set about the adventure. I wonder if they'll be naming these gods. I don't know. We have stumbled into a Greek story that has probably been like Christianized to be getting rid of things. And I see lower, like they're not saying Gorgons, they're not saying Medusa, and they're not saying gods. And then lower down, I can see the word fairy popped out. This must be a very like restructured story, but this is them. This is so funny. Okay. Then the lady said that to kill the dreadful woman with the golden wings and the brass claws, and to cut off her head, he needed 3 things. First, a cap of darkness, which would make him invisible when he wore it. Anyway, next a sword of sharpness, which would cleave iron at one blow, and last the shoes of swiftness, which he might fly in the air. This is so silly to me that this is put, like literally this is in the Blue Fairy Book, 1889, along with all of these very European, but like the sort of era of the balls and Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and so this is so funny that this is, anyway, they just took on their own version of it and erased the parts that were pagan. Like, oh, never mind that. Okay. The boy answered that he knew not where such things were to be procured, and that wanting them he could only try and fail. Then the young man, taking off his own shoes, 'cause said, "First you shall use these shoes till you have taken the terrible head, and then you must give them back to me. And with these shoes you will fly as fleet as a bird, or thought, over the land or over the waves of the sea, wherever the shoes know the way. But there are ways which they do not know, roads beyond the borders of the world, and these roads have you to travel. Now first you must go to the 3 Grey Sisters." If you don't know who all of these characters are that we're referring to, I'd love for you to have your guesses. Anyway, the 3 Grey Sisters who live far off in the north, and are so very cold that they have only 1 eye and 1 tooth among the 3. You must creep up close to them, and as one of them passes the eye to the other, you must seize it, and refuse to give it up till they have told you the way to the 3 fairies of the garden, and they will give you the cap of darkness and the sword of sharpness, and show you how to wing beyond this world to the land of the terrible head. Maybe I misread who the beautiful lady was, but I thought that would have been where he'd get the cap of darkness. Oh no, her eyes are very blue, so no, that's not who I thought that was. Okay, so who was that? I don't know. Gotta get the terrible head. Then the beautiful lady said, Go forth at once, and do not return to say good-bye to your mother, for these things must be done quickly, and the shoes of swiftness themselves will carry you to the land of the Grey Sisters, for they know the measure of that way." So the boy thanked her, and he fastened on the shoes of swiftness. Literally just scratch the names off, nobody will notice, as Fetster said. It's really what these people did. All these medieval era kind of things. Like, never mind them. Okay. They will know the measure that way. So the boy thanked her, and he fastened on the shoes of swiftness, and turned to say goodbye to the young man and lady, but behold, they had vanished. Da-da-da. He knew not how or where. Then he leaped into the air to try the shoes of swiftness, and they carried him more swiftly than the wind, over the warm blue sea, over the happy lands of the south, over the northern peoples who drank mare's milk and lived in great wagons, wandering over their flocks, across the wide rivers where the wild fowl rose and fled before him, and over the plains and the cold North Sea he went, over the fields of snow and the hills of ice, to a place where the world ends, and all water is frozen, and there are no men, nor beasts, nor any green grass. So, the Arctic, cool. Anyway, there in a blue cave of the ice he found the Grey Sisters, the oldest of living things. Their hair was as white as the snow, and their flesh of an icy blue, and they mumbled and nodded in a kind of dream, and their frozen breath hung round them like a cloud. As opposed to smoke, but now the opening of the cave in the ice was narrow, and it was not easy to pass in without touching one of the Grey Sisters, but floating on the shoes of swiftness, the boy managed to steal in, and waited for one of the sisters, till one of the sisters said to the other, who had the one eye, "Sister, what do you see? Do you see old times coming back?" "No, sister." "Then give me the eye, for perhaps I can see farther than you." Then the first sister passed the eye to the second, but as the second groped for it, the boy caught it cleverly out of her hand. "Where is the eye, sister?" said the second Grey Woman. "You have taken it yourself, sister," said the first Grey Woman. "Have you lost the eye, sisters? Have you lost the eye?" said the third Grey Woman. "Shall we never find it again and see old times coming back?" Then the boy slipped from behind them out of the cold cave into the air, and he laughed aloud. Then the Grey Women heard that laugh, and they began to weep, for now they knew that a stranger had robbed them, and they could not help themselves, and their tears froze as they fell from the hollows where no eyes were, and rattled on the ground of the icy cave. And they began to implore the boy to give them their eye back again, and he could not help being sorry for them. They were so pitiful, but he said he would never give them the eye until they told him the way to the fairies of the garden. Sorry. Yes, it was muted. I had a very loud cough, so I was muting myself. The beat his ass, that's entirely what the older story would have done, probably, or they would have threatened to cut his string, but in the sanitized version they would have done, I guess, just nothing. Oh well. Alright, sorry. Here we go. He asked the way to the fairies of the garden. They wrung their hands miserably, for they guessed why he had come, and now he was going to try to win the terrible head. Now the dreadful women were kin to the three grey sisters. So they're saying, the people with the terrible head, those three sisters are related to the three grey sisters. And it was hard for them to tell the boy the way, but at last they told him to keep always south, and with the land on his left and the sea on his right, till he reached the island of the fairies of the garden. Then he gave them back the eye, and they began to look out once more for the old times coming back again. But the boy flew south between the sea and land, keeping the land always on his left hand, till he saw a beautiful island crowned with flowering trees. There he alighted, and there he found the three fairies of the garden. They were like three very beautiful young women, dressed one in green, one in white, and one in red, and they were dancing and singing round an apple tree with apples of gold, and this was their song. Oh boy. The song of the Western Fairies. Round and round the apples of gold, round and round dance we. Thus do we dance from the days of old about the enchanted tree. Round and round we go, while the spring is green, or the steam shall flow, or the wind shall stir the sea. There is none may taste the golden fruit till the golden new time come. Many a tree shall spring from shoot, many a blossom be withered at root, many a song be dumb, broken and still shall many a lute, wherever the new times come. Round and round the tree of gold, round and round dance we, so doth the great world spin from old, summer and winter, and fire and cold, song that is sung and tale that is told, even as we dance that fold and unfold round the stem of the fairy tree. These grave dancing fairies were very unlike the grey women, and they were glad to see the boy and treated him kindly. Then they asked him why he had come, and he told them how he was sent to find the sword of sharpness and the cap of darkness, and the fairies gave him these, and a wallet and a shield, and belted the sword, which had a diamond blade round his waist, and the cap they set on his head, and told him that now even they could not see him, though they were fairies. Then he took it off, and they each kissed him and wished him good fortune, and then they began again their eternal dance round the golden tree, for it was their business to guard it till the new times come, or till the world's ending. So the boy put the cap on his head, and hung the wallet round his waist, and the shining shield on his shoulders, and flew beyond the great river that lies coiled like a serpent round the whole world. And by the banks of that river, there he found the three terrible women all asleep beneath a poplar tree, and the dead poplar leaves lay all about them. Their golden wings were folded, and their brass claws were crossed, and two of them slept with their hideous heads beneath their wings like birds, and the serpents in their hair writhed out from under the feathers of gold. But the youngest slept between her two sisters, and she lay on her back, with her beautiful sad face turned to the sky, and though she slept with her eyes were wide open. If the boy had seen her, he would have been changed into stone. Maybe if the boy had been seen by her, he would have been changed into stone by the terror and the pity of it. She was so awful. But he had thought of a plan for killing her without looking on her face. Oh, okay. So no, he hasn't seen her yet. As soon as he caught sight of the three of them from afar, he took off his shining shield from his shoulders and held it up like a mirror, so that he saw the dreadful women reflected in it and did not see the terrible head itself. Then he came nearer and nearer, till he reckoned that he was within a sword stroke of the youngest, and he guessed where he should strike a blow behind him. Then he drew the sword of sharpness and struck once, and the terrible head was cut from the shoulders of the creature, and the blood leaped out and struck him like a blow. But he thrust the terrible head into his wallet and flew away without looking behind. Then the two dreadful sisters who were left wakened and rose in the air like great birds. Though they could not see him because of his cap of darkness, they flew after him up in the wind, following by the scent through the clouds, like hounds hunting in the wood. They came so close that he could hear the clatter of their golden wings, and their shrieks to each other, "Here, here! No, there! This way he went!" as they chased him. But the shoes of swiftness flew too fast for them, and at last their cries and the rattle of their wings died away as he crossed the great river that runs around the world. Now, when the horrible creatures were far in the distance, and the boy found himself on the right side of the river, he flew straight eastward, trying to seek his own country. Hello! Yes, I finally have the avatar working. I'm very happy about it. Thank you. Okay. So he's trying to get back to his own country now. Everybody's dancing. Oh yes. There's a little frog. We have frogs now. But as he looked down from the air, he saw a very strange sight. A beautiful girl chained to a stake at the high water mark of the sea. The girl was so frightened or so tired that she was only prevented from falling by the iron chain about her waist, and there she hung as if she were dead. The boy was very sorry for her and flew down and stood beside her. When he spoke, she raised her head and looked round, but his voice only seemed to frighten her. Then he remembered that he was wearing the cap of darkness, and that she could only see him, hear him. Oh my goodness. Not see him. So he took it off, and there he stood before her, the handsomest young man she had ever seen in all her life, with short, curly yellow hair and blue eyes and a laughing face. And he thought her the most beautiful girl in the world. So first, with one blow of the sword of sharpness, he cut the iron chain that bound her, and then he asked her what she did there, and why men treated her so cruelly. She told him that she was the daughter of the king of that country, and that she was tied there to be eaten by a monstrous beast out of the sea, for the beast came and devoured a girl every day. Now the lot had fallen on her, and as she was just saying this, a long, fierce head of a cruel sea creature rose out of the waves and snapped at the girl. But the beast had been too greedy and too hurried, so he missed his aim at the first time, but he could rise and bite again at the boy, and the boy had whipped the terrible head out of his wallet and held it up. And when the sea beast leapt out once more, its eyes fell on the head, and instantly it was turned into a stone, and the stone beast is there on the sea coast to this day. Oh wow, I just saw all the rest of the dancing. Fun. Such cute chat little emotes. Fun. Okay. The boy and the girl went to the palace of the king, her father, where everyone was weeping for her death, and they could hardly believe their eyes when they saw her come back well. And the king and the queen made much of the boy, could not contain themselves for delight when they found he wanted to marry their daughter. So the two were married with the most splendid rejoicing, and when they had passed some time at court, they went home in a ship to the boy's own country, for he could not carry his bride through the air. So he took off the shoes of swiftness, and the cap of darkness, and the sword of sharpness, up a lonely place in the hills. There he left them, and there they were found by the man and woman who had met him at home beside the sea, and had helped him to start his journey. When this had been done, the boy and his bride set forth for home. Hello again, Cage Nightwind. And they landed at the harbor of his native land. But whom should he meet in the very street of the town but his own mother, flying for her life from the wicked king who now wished to kill her because he found that she would never marry him. For if she had liked the king ill before, she liked him far worse now that he had caused her son to disappear so suddenly. She did not know, of course, where the boy had gone, but thought the king had slain him secretly. So now she was running for her very life, and the wicked king who was following her with a sword in his hand. Then, behold, she ran into her son's very arms, but he had only time to kiss her and step in front of her when the king struck at him with a sword. The boy caught the blow on his shield and cried to the king, "I swore to bring you the terrible head, and see how I keep my oath." Then he drew forth the head from his wallet, and when the king's eyes fell on it, he instantly turned to stone, just as he stood there with his sword lifted. Now all the people rejoiced because the wicked king should rule them no longer, and they asked the boy to be their king, but he said no. He must take his mother home to her father's house. So the people chose for king the man who had been kind to his mother when first she was cast on the island with the great chest. That's a fairly nice choice. I'm a little bit confused that we've killed that king but not the other one, but let's see. Presently the boy and his mother and his wife set sail for his mother's own country, from which she had been driven so unkindly. But on the way they stayed at the court of a king, and it happened that he was holding games and giving prizes to the best runners, boxes, and quoit throwers. I'll have to look up that word. Then the boy would try his strength with the rest, but he threw the quoit so far that it went beyond what had ever been thrown before and fell in the crowd, striking a man so that he died. Now this man was no other than the father of the boy's mother, who had fled away from his own kingdom for fear his grandson should find him and kill him after all. Thus he was destroyed by his own cowardice and by chance, and thus the prophecy was fulfilled, of course. But the boy and his wife and his mother went back to the kingdom that was theirs, that man had, cowardly fled, and lived long and happily after all their troubles. The end. Freaking ridiculous. You never hear a prophecy that someone's gonna kill you that is like your family and then send them away. No. You can't do that. No. But also, what crazy twist. Okay, we're gonna go on all this way, and then the way that you do end up killing your father or your grandfather is such like a, oh, oops, like did the boy even know that was his grandfather, or was it like they threw it and then people were like, oh my gosh, you hit a guy, and he was like, oh, oops. So do we want to keep going to that kingdom that we're supposed to go to? Like, did any of them ever know? Because I can just laugh at the idea that no, nobody even noticed. But alright, what do we think of the way that they mixed all of that up? They didn't just have the Gorgons with the sisters and Medusa. They had mixed in with like Furies with the wings and claws. And I'm certain that was supposed to be Hermes. But who was the woman with Hermes that they gave no description of besides blue eyes? Who was that supposed to be? And the woman that was chained up for the monster to eat, I wonder if that's a specific story. I think that was just like them cobbling something together. And they twisted around the Medusa thing. Instead of when Medusa sees you, it's when you see Medusa. So that's interesting. Yeah, it is. They took they took the central stories and they're like, put it all together. I imagine it's something like, by the time they had been hearing this, the person that made this book or the people around him, Andrew Lang, no, various authors, the editor was Andrew Lang, okay, whoever was writing this one, it was someone else that told a bunch of different Greek stories, and so they just like only remembered certain pieces, so they threw it all together in one, like a gumbo of story, basically. It's so funny. But that was the terrible head. What an interesting time. Hmm. All right, that was that story. Um, yeah, exactly. It was like, well, that country over there, they tell these stories. It's probably all one big thing, but I never paid any attention, so here's that. Very odd. Okay. The next story or some triggers. What would y'all like to request? Yeah. Actually, I was going to look up that word. Coit, I think it was. Let's double check the spelling. Okay. A ring of iron, rope, or rubber. So it is something a little more like a discus. I was imagining like the log throwing. Just a very long. I don't know why my brain was kind of like a cord of wood, a quoit. I don't know. Something more like the Highland games than like the Greek games, but I should have known better. A discus, yeah, basically. What a way to go. Ridiculous. Yes, I still have the page open to do more, like looking into it, but I've looked into it a little bit. I have so many stories I want to eventually get around to. There's so many things. I think I'm going to have to pick a specific day to like drop the fairy tales for a little while and go into cryptids, and then a span, like a season of cryptid, and then a span of Greek and Roman, and then a span of specifically like more the dragon stories, because they can be kind of another niche. They're not always in the fairy tale or even so much the cryptid, so you gotta carve out a space for them too. Like, there'll be a lot of steps, but yeah, exactly. And I wanna check out so many things. This is the sort of stuff I love to do, to read, and so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll get to the rocks eventually. Does anyone have any requests, or should I go to the next story straight away? Oh gosh, that's awful. Good luck with that, Fetster, and your neighbor with all the alarms going. Alright, good enough for me. No worries. Very fair. That's probably what that kid is feeling, that little, like, ah! Just chaos. I mean, sometimes that's the vibe. You just gotta enjoy that. Children know how to do that. I love when children are like, slightly controlled chaos. This is my life. Yes, this is what we need. But at the same time, jeez, let's maybe another time, small child, please. I don't know. All right. Well, then my next story is the story of Pretty Goldilocks, which is different from the Goldilocks and the Bears. No three bears in the title. It will it will be a bit different, but we'll see how much. Immediately, I'm noticing a lot more going on, so this might be a completely different Goldilocks. I'm not immediately seeing any bears. So, this is, probably a completely different story. We'll see. Okay. Double checking everything is set up nicely. You can still see me. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a princess who was the prettiest creature in the world. My freaking throat. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, it's like all the frogs are in my throat for no reason. Once upon a time, there was a princess who was the prettiest creature in the world. And because she was so beautiful, and because her hair was like the finest gold, and waved and rippled nearly to the ground, she was called Pretty Goldilocks. She always wore a crown of flowers, and her dresses were embroidered with diamonds and pearls, and everybody who saw her fell in love with her. They do be like that. I think part of it comes from I'm talking very softly, and so I can hold back the frogginess just behind, but then if I adjust a little bit, then it's like I can't do anything about it. It's very weird. This is the sort of thing I'm learning. I'm still learning how I'll do this. Okay. Everybody falls in love with her, of course. How many freaking stories here are just and there was a princess who was impossibly gorgeous. Every time. I mean, fair. Women be pretty. But, come on. Is everyone gorgeous? Ooh. Death Noah? I don't know if you're still here, but remember that time we got a very chaotic knock at my door? I'm concerned there's someone here again. Oh no. I will be right back. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I have dealt with him. Thank you for all those little emotes. Alright. Let's hope for no more of that nonsense. Gorgeous little girl, Goldilocks. Right. I like that we've got all the firearms, but I'm still more of the Psyduck. I'll be making emotes eventually with the duck and a little knife kind of a vibe, because I like that too much. Anyway, okay. Goldilocks. Now. Yeah. Okay. Now, one of her neighbors was a young king who was not married. He was very rich and handsome, and when he heard all that was said about pretty Goldilocks, though he had never seen her, he fell so deeply in love with her that he could neither eat nor drink. So he resolved to send an ambassador to ask her in marriage. He had a splendid carriage made for his ambassador, and gave him more than 100 horses and 100 servants, and told him to be sure and bring the princess back with him. Yes, the rubber duck. Oh my gosh. That is such a great emote. Oh, it's so detailed. Oh my gosh. I love that emote. Oh my god. Okay. Enough distraction. Make sure to bring the princess back with him, right? After he had started, nothing else was talked of at court, and the king felt so sure that the princess would consent that he sent his people to work at pretty dresses and splendid furniture that they might be ready by the time she came. Meanwhile, the ambassador arrived at the princess's palace and delivered his little message, but whether she happened to be cross that day or whether the compliment did not please her is not known. She only answered that she was very much obliged to the king, but she had no wish to be married. The ambassador set off sadly on his homeward way, bringing all the king's presents back with him, for the princess was too well brought up to accept the pearls and diamonds when she would not accept the king, so she had only kept 25 English pins that he might not be vexed. When the ambassador reached the city where the king was waiting impatiently, everybody was very much annoyed with him for not bringing the princess, and the king cried like a baby, and nobody could console him. Now there was at the court a young man who was more clever and handsome than anyone else. He was called Charming, and everyone loved him, excepting a few envious people who were angry at his being the king's favorite and knowing all the state secrets. Oh, he also knows all the secrets. Okay. He happened to one day be with some people who were speaking of the ambassador's return and saying that his going to the princess had not done much good, when Charming said rashly, "If the king had sent me to Princess Goldilocks, I am sure she would have come back with me." His enemies at once went to the king and said, "You will hardly believe, sire, that Charming has the audacity to say if he had been sent to the Princess Goldilocks, she would certainly have come back with him. He seems to think that he is so much handsomer than you that the princess would have fallen in love with him and followed him willingly." The king was very angry when he heard this. "Ha ha," said he. "Does he laugh at my unhappiness and think himself more fascinating than I am? Go, and let him be shut up in my great tower to die of hunger." Okay. So the king's guards went to fetch Charming, who had thought no more of his rash speech, and carried him off to prison with great cruelty. The poor prisoner had only a little straw for his bed, and but for a little stream of water which flowed through the tower he would have died of thirst. One day, when he was in despair, he said to himself, "How can I have offended the king? I am his most faithful subject, and have done nothing against him." The king chanced to be passed over the tower and recognized the voice of his former favorite. He stopped to listen, in spite of Charming's enemies, who tried to persuade him to have nothing more to do with the traitor. But the king said, "Be quiet. I wish to hear what he says." And then he opened the tower door and called to Charming, who came very sadly and kissed the king's hand, saying, "What have I done, sire, to deserve this cruel treatment?" "You mocked me and my ambassador," said the king, "and you said that if I had sent you to the Princess Goldilocks, you would certainly have brought her back." "It is quite true, sire," replied Charming. "I should have drawn such a picture of you, and represented your good qualities in such a way that I am certain the princess would have found you irresistible. But I cannot see what there is in that to make you angry." The king would not see any cause for anger either when the matter was presented to him in this light, and he began to frown very fiercely at the courtiers who had misrepresented his favorite. So he took Charming back to the palace with him, and after seeing that he had a very good supper, he said to him, "You know that I love pretty Goldilocks as much as ever. Her refusal has not made any difference to me, but I don't know how to make her change her mind. I really should like to send you to see if you can persuade her to marry me." Charming replied that he was perfectly willing to go, and would set out the very next day. "But you must wait till I can get a grand escort for you," said the king. But Charming said that he only wanted a good horse to ride, and the king, who was delighted at his being ready to start so promptly, gave him letters to the princess and bade him good speed. It was on a Monday morning that he set out all alone upon his errand, thinking of nothing but how he could persuade the Princess Goldilocks to marry the king. "Hello, Turtle Boy! Welcome! Yes, check out the new frogs. We have a wow frog. I'm very happy with him. Okay, I'll keep going with this Goldilocks." How he was going to get her to marry the king, right? He had a writing book in his pocket, and whenever any happy thought struck him, he dismounted from his horse and sat down under the trees to put it into the harangue which he was preparing for the princess before he forgot it. One day, when he had started at the very earliest dawn and was riding over a great meadow, he suddenly had a capital idea. And springing from his horse, he sat under a willow tree which grew by a little river. He had written it down. When he had written it down, he was looking around him, pleased to find himself in such a pretty place, when all at once he saw a great golden carp lying gasping and exhausted upon the grass. In leaping after little flies, she had thrown herself high upon the bank, where she had lain till she was nearly dead. Charming had pity upon her, and though he couldn't help thinking that she would have been very nice for dinner, he picked her up gently and put her back into the water. As soon as Dame Carp felt the refreshing coolness of the water, she sank down joyfully to the bottom of the river. Then, swimming up to the bank quite boldly, she said, "I thank you, Charming, for the kindness you have done me. You have saved my life. One day I shall repay you." So saying, she sank back down into the water again, leaving Charming greatly astonished at her politeness. Another day, as he journeyed on, he saw a raven in great distress. The poor bird was closely pursued by an eagle, which would have soon eaten it, had not Charming quickly fitted an arrow to his bow and shot the eagle dead. The raven perched upon a tree very joyfully. "Charming," said he, "it was very generous of you to rescue a poor raven. I am not ungrateful. Some day I will repay you." Charming thought it was very nice of the raven to say so, and went on his way. I have to say, if you had shot the raven to make it easier to give the food to the eagle, would the eagle not have also been very thankful? Anyway. Before the sun rose, he found himself in a thick wood where it was too dark for him to see his path, and here he heard an owl crying as if it were in despair. "Hark," said he, "that must be an owl in great trouble. I am sure it has gone into a snare," and he began to hunt about, and presently found a great net which some bird catchers had spread the night before. "What a pity it is that men do nothing but torment and persecute poor creatures which never do them any harm," said he, and he took out his knife and cut the cords of the net, and the owl flitted away into the darkness. But then, turning with one flicker of her wings, she came back to Charming and said, "It does not need many words to tell you how great a service you have done me. I was caught. In a few minutes the fowlers would have been here. Without your help I should have been killed. I am grateful, and one day I will repay you." Same frickin' thing. Maybe the fowlers would be appreciative that you didn't get rid of their food. I don't know. Just get up from a nap. Aw, thank you, Turtle Boy. That's very nice. Well, I'm happy to have you and very happy for the compliment. Okay. Da, da. These three adventures, the carp, the raven, the owl, these three adventures were the only ones of any consequence that befell Charming upon his journey, and he made all the haste he could to reach the palace of the Princess Goldilocks. When he arrived, he thought everything he saw delightful and magnificent. Diamonds were as plentiful as pebbles, and the gold and silver, the beautiful dresses, the sweetmeats and pretty things that were everywhere quite amazed him. He thought to himself, if the princess consents to leave all this and come with me to marry the king, he may think himself lucky. Then he dressed himself carefully in rich brocade, with scarlet and white plumes, and threw a splendid embroidered scarf over his shoulder, and looking as gay and as graceful as possible, he presented himself at the door of the palace, carrying in his arm a tiny pretty dog which he had bought on the way. Oh, thank you for subscribing. You get some frogs. Drop your frog emotes. He bought a dog along the way, yes. The guards saluted him respectfully, and a messenger was sent to the princess to announce the arrival of Charming as ambassador of her neighbor the king. Charming, said the princess, the name promises well. I have no doubt that he is good-looking and fascinates everybody. Indeed he does, madam, said all her maids of honor in one breath. We saw him from the window of the garret where we were spinning flax, and we could do nothing but look at him as long as he was in sight. Well, to be sure, said the princess, that's how you amuse yourselves, is it? Looking at strangers out the window? Be quick and give my blue satin embroidered dress, and comb out my golden hair. Let somebody make me fresh garlands of flowers, and give me high-heeled shoes and my fan, and tell them to sweep my great hall and my throne, for I want everyone to say I am really pretty Goldilocks. Spinning rats! Whoa! You can imagine how all her maids scurried this way and that to make the princess ready, and how in their haste they knocked their heads together and hindered each other, till she thought they would never have done. However, at last they led her into the gallery of mirrors, that she might assure herself that nothing was lacking in her appearance. More rats! You violet followers. All the rats. I love to see the rats too. Okay. Oh no, Psyduck. Psyduck, don't try to fight the rats. There's a whole army. Don't do it. There's a story unfolding in the chat. Oh no. Now there's a bunch of Psyducks with knives. Better run, rats. Okay. But Goldilocks. Okay. All of them have bonked around. However, at last they led her into the gallery of mirrors. Oh my gosh, another yawn. But oh no! Oh, scared rats and stressed out little cows. Oh, what side are you on, kit with a knife? What are you going to do? An army of rats. A small crowd of Psyducks. A couple of very stressed out cows looking on, and then a little tiny black kitten with a knife. Who wins? What happens? Alright. However, at last they led her into the gallery of mirrors, that she might assure herself that nothing was lacking in her appearance, and then she mounted her throne of gold, ebony, and ivory, while her ladies took their guitars and began to sing softly, which is just reminding me of the cats courtiers in the White Cat story yesterday. Anyway, then Charming was led in, and was so struck with astonishment and admiration that at first not a word could he say. Yeah, cats do eat rats. But But presently he took courage and delivered his harangue, bravely ending by begging the princess to spare him the disappointment of going back without her. "Sir Charming," answered she, "all the reasons you have given me are very good ones, and I assure you that I should have more pleasure in obliging you than anyone else. But you must know that a month ago, as I was walking by the river with my ladies, I took off my glove, and as I did so, a ring that I was wearing slipped off my finger and rolled into the water. As I valued it more than my kingdom, you may imagine how vexed I was at losing it, and I vowed to never listen to any proposal of marriage unless the ambassador first brought me back my ring. So now you know what is expected of you, for if you talked for 15 days and 15 nights, you could not make me change my mind." Death, no, a bad kitties, right? I mean, they do. They do. Death Note is not wrong. But we do want to. I would prefer if you don't all go eating each other in the chat. Everybody can sit in my Emerald Lake, sit in my forest together. Peacefully, hopefully. Well, mostly peacefully. Sometimes chaos is the right way. Oh, see, now you made the kitty sad. Don't do that. Look at it. All right. Oh, there you go. Yes. Say hi to the kitty. Give her little pats. Make her feel better. Okay. So now the Oh, happy kitty. Charming now has to go get the ring. Charming was very much surprised by this answer, but he bowed low to the princess and begged her to accept the embroidered scarf and the tiny dog he had brought with him, just like with the white cat. Weirdly, tiny dogs is the center. I don't know. But she answered that she did not want any presents and that he was to remember what she had just told him. Literally, men never listen. Well, just joke. When he got back to his lodging, anyway, he went to bed without eating any supper, and his little dog, who was called Frisk, couldn't eat any either. "Oh no, she upset the puppy. Don't do that, princess. Now the dog won't even eat. Oh no." But Frisk came and lay down close to him. Oh. All night, Charming sighed and lamented. "How am I to find a ring that fell into the river a month ago?" said he. "It is useless to try. The princess must have told me to do it on purpose, knowing it was impossible." And then he sighed again. Frisk heard him and said, "My dear master, don't despair. The luck may change. You are too good not to be happy. Let us go down to the river as soon as it is light." But Charming only gave him 2 little pats and said nothing. So the pat the head thing is very fitting. At the first glimmer of dawn, Frisk began to jump about, and when he had waked Charming, they went out together, first into the garden, and then down to the river's bank, where they wandered up and down. Charming was thinking sadly of having to go back unsuccessful when he heard someone calling, "Charming, Charming!" He looked all about him, thought he must be dreaming, as he could not see anybody. Well, what about Frisk? Frisk is there. Anyway, then he walked on, and the voice called again, "Charming, Charming!" "Who calls me?" said he. Frisk, who was very small and could see closely into the water, cried out, "I see a golden carp coming." And sure enough, there was the great carp, who said to Charming, "You saved my life in the meadow by the willow tree, and I promised that I would repay you. Take this, it is Princess Goldilocks' ring." Charming took the ring out of Dame Carp's mouth. She is a dame. Thanking her 1,000 times, and he and Tiny Frisk went straight to the palace, where someone told the princess that he was asking to see her. "Ah, poor fellow," said she, "he must have come to say goodbye, finding it impossible to do as I asked." So in came Charming, who presented her with the ring and said, "Madam, I have done your bidding. Will it please you to marry my master?"
When the princess saw her ring brought back to her, unhurt, she was so astonished that she thought she must be dreaming. "Truly, charming," said she, "you must be the favorite of some fairy, or you could never have found it." "Madam," answered he, "I was helped by nothing but my desire to obey your wishes." Okay, dude, you gotta give credit to the carps of the world. Like, she is a dame. She probably was, like, aware of the kingdom. Like, I don't know. Give credit. Anyway. "Since you are so kind," said she. "Since you are so kind," said she, "perhaps you will do me another service, for till it is done I will never be married. There is a prince not far from here whose name is Gallifron." Gallifron, okay. "Who once wanted to marry me, but when I refused, he uttered the most terrible threats against me, and vowed that he would lay waste to my country." Ugh. We all know those types. But what could I do? I could not marry a frightful giant as tall as a tower who eats up people as a monkey eats chestnuts. Oh yeah, always rule of three. Always. Anyway, so we know that this is not going to be the last journey for him anyway, but I'm going to guess Raven helps with attacking or threatening the giant, who knows. She wasn't going to marry that giant who eats people as a monkey eats chestnuts, and who talks so loud that anybody who has to listen to him becomes quite deaf. Nevertheless, he does not cease to persecute me and to kill my subjects. So before I can listen to a proposal, you must kill him and bring me his head." Charming was rather dismayed, and at this command he answered, "Well, very well, princess. I will fight this Gallifron. I believe that he will kill me, but at any rate I shall die in your defense." Good mindset to have. Go off. Okay. Then the princess was frightened and said everything she could think of to prevent Charming from fighting the giant, but it was of no use. Then he went out to arm himself suitably, and then, taking little Frisk with him, he mounted his horse and set out for Gallifron's country. Just a man and his little dog going off to deal with the giant because his boss was, a baby crying over this princess. Made a giant dramatic mess of everything. I can see this character, if they were to make this a movie or something, I can see this character being someone super sarcastic and just being like, "Ugh, okay, fine, alright." Everyone he met told him what a terrible giant Gallifron was, and that nobody dared go near him. And the more he heard, the more frightened he grew. Frisk tried to encourage him, saying, "While you are fighting the giant, dear master, I will go and bite his heels, and when he stoops down to look at me, you can kill him." What a brave little tiny dog! Oh no! Charming praised his little dog's plan, but knew that this would not do much good. Yeah. At last he drew near the giant's castle, and saw to his horror that every path to it was strewn with bones. Ugh. Before long he saw Gallifron coming. His head was higher than the tallest trees, and he sang in a terrible voice, "Prince Chicken." Hey, he's not a prince, he's just a dude. And he's got a brave dog. That's what matters, I guess. And he's pretty and whatever. I guess that's important too. I don't know. Alright, the giant is singing. "Bring out your little boys and girls. Pray do not stay to do their curls, for I shall eat so very many, I shall not know if they have any." Curls, I guess he means. Ugh. Oh, yeah, okay. Next bit. I want to see this happen, and I want to see, oh no, what's his name? Who is in The Great as the oh my gosh, my brain is emptying out. And Warm Bodies, the zombie in Warm Bodies. I think his name is Nick something. I don't know. I can see that actor playing this character. He was in the vampire movie recently. I'll find it afterwards. But I can just see this charming asshole. Okay. Thereupon, when the giant sings that, Charming sang out as loud as he could do the same tune. So just immediately, they just have a singing battle. Come out and meet the valiant Charming, who finds you not at all alarming. Although he is not very tall, he's big enough to make you fall. Oh. The rhymes were not very correct. They were perfectly good. How rude, this story. Anyway, but you see, he had made them up so quickly that it is a miracle that they were not worse. Yeah, exactly. Especially as he was horribly frightened all the time. Yeah. When Galifron heard these words, he looked all about him and saw Charming standing, sword in hand. This put the giant into a terrible rage, and he aimed a blow at Charming with his huge iron club, which would certainly have killed him if it had reached him. But at that instant, we gotta get some help, a raven perched upon the giant's head, pecking with his strong beak and beating with its great wings, so confused and blinded him that all his blows fell harmlessly upon the air, and Charming, rushing in, gave him several strokes with his sharp sword, so that he fell to the ground. Whereupon Charming cut off his head before he knew anything about it, and the raven from a tree close by croaked out, "You see, I have not forgotten the good turn you did me in killing the eagle. Today I think I have fulfilled my promise of repaying you. Indeed, I owe you gratitude more than you ever owed me," replied Charming. Then he mounted his horse and rode off with Galifron's head. Then he reached the city. The people ran after him in crowds, crying, "Behold the brave Charming who has killed the giant," and their shouts reached the princess's ear, but she dared not ask what was happening, for fear she should hear that Charming had been killed. But very soon he arrived at the palace with the giant's head, of which she was still terrified, though it could no longer do her any harm. Well, yeah, I'd assume you'd be pretty spooked by the guy that you rejected, and he's like, "Okay, now I'm just gonna kill everybody. Okay. "Princess," said Charming, "I have killed your enemy. I hope you will now consent to marry the king my master." "Oh dear, no," said the princess. "Not until you have brought me some water from the gloomy cavern. Not far from here there is a deep cave, the entrance to which is guarded by 2 dragons with fiery eyes, who will not allow anyone to pass them. When you get into the cavern you will find an immense hole which you must go down, and it is full of toads and snakes. At the bottom of this hole there is another little cave, in which rises the fountain of health and beauty. It is some of this water that I really must have. Everything it touches becomes wonderful. The beautiful things will always remain beautiful, and the ugly things become lovely. If one is young, one never grows old, and if one is old, one becomes young. You see, Charming, I could not leave my kingdom without taking some of it with me." Yeah, just go on a quest for the Fountain of Youth, it's chill. It's totally attainable. It's not a big deal. Lady, my gosh. How is an owl going to fix this for us? I don't know. Anyway. "Princess," said he, "you at least can never need this water." Very smooth. "But I am an unhappy ambassador whose death you desire. Where you send me, I will go, though I know I shall never return." Little dancing turtle boy. Yeah, very fair for this guy to say, "Oh, do you want me dead, princess? Is this what you're after? Do you just want me dead? What's going on?" "Fine, I'll go." Jeez. 'Cause she really is. And as the Princess Goldilocks showed no sign of relenting, yeah, okay, she's really doing this, He started off with his little dog for the gloomy cavern. Everyone he met on the way said, "What a pity that handsome young man should throw away his life so carelessly." Guys, he doesn't have a choice. If he goes home unsuccessful, that king's gonna do awful things too. Alright. He's going to the cavern alone, though if he had 100 men with him, he could not succeed. Why does the princess ask impossibilities? Very good questions, people. Charming said nothing, but he was very sad. When he was near the top of a hill, he dismounted to let his horse graze, while Frisk amused himself by chasing flies. Our little Frisk. Charming knew he could not be far from the gloomy cavern, and on looking about him he saw a black, hideous rock from which came a thick smoke, followed in a moment by one of the dragons with fire blazing from his mouth and eyes. His body was yellow and green, and his claws scarlet, and his tail was so long that it lay in 100 coils. Frisk was so terrified at the sight of it that he did not know where to hide. Charming, quite determined to get the water or die, now drew his sword, and taking the crystal flask which pretty Goldilocks had given to him to fill, said to Frisk, "I feel sure that I shall never come back from this expedition. When I am dead, go to the princess and tell her that her errand has cost me my life. Then find the king my master, and relate all my adventures to him." As he spoke, he heard a voice calling, "Charming, Charming!" "Who calls me?" said he. Then he saw an owl sitting in a hollow tree, who said to him, "You saved my life when I was caught in a net. Now I can repay you. Trust me with the flask, for I know all the ways of the gloomy cavern, and can fill it from the fountain of beauty." Charming was only too glad to give her the flask, and she fitted into the cavern quite unnoticed by the dragon, and after some time returned with the flask, filled to the very brim with sparkling water. Charming thanked her with all his heart, and joyfully hastened back to the town. Yeah, I guess the owls can fly pretty much silently, so I guess I should have seen that being the solution, but still, there we go. That poor guy is like, I just made one offhand comment, like, we were just razzing the boss, and next thing I know, I'm in a freaking tower, and I'm gonna have to hold my complaints up, like have to stand by those, so now I gotta do this. I was just having a bad day and chatting with the boys, like, come on, I didn't ask for this. Okay. But it's worked. They've got it. And now they're going back. Charming thanked her with all his heart and joyfully hastened back to the town. He went straight to the palace and gave the flask to the princess, who had no further objection to make. She frickin' better not. So she thanked Charming and ordered that preparations should be made for her departure, and they soon set out together. Finally, the princess found Charming such an agreeable companion that she sometimes said to him, "Why didn't we stay where we were? I could have made you king, and we should have been so happy." But Charming only answered, "I could not have done anything that would have vexed my master so much, even for a kingdom, or to please you, though I think you are beautiful as the sun." Very true. He is not a quitter. He's got that much going for him. And he's loyal. He said, "I am not gonna betray my master. I'm sorry, no. But you are frickin' gorgeous." A little piece of me is like, maybe he just is actually gay. Like, and is like, no, but girl, you're gorgeous, but no. Because he is like, more loyal to his master. They wanted to marry. Yeah, fair. That's another point. Maybe he's just like, why would I be around you when you have sent me to my death so carelessly, so often? I am not going near you, lady. And yeah, charming is the "this is fine" meme for sure. This is fine. This is fine. And then little Frisk is like jumping around like, maybe it's not. Maybe we can do something. Please. I don't want to die either. Okay, point is, he said no thanks, you are gorgeous, but anyway, let's go to my king. At last they reached the king's great city, and he came out to meet the princess, bringing magnificent presents, and the marriage was celebrated with great rejoicings. Oh no, but Goldilocks was so fond of Charming that she could not be happy unless he was near her, and she was always singing his praises. Oh, no, that's exactly Frisk. That is totally Frisk vibe. Especially the like hollow wide eyes. I know that that's just like the style, but I can kind of see it as like he's partying but also like empty. I can see that. Okay. So Princess Goldilocks is still obsessed with Charming. If it hadn't been for Charming, she said to the king, I should never have come here. You ought to be very much obliged to him, for he did the most impossible things and got me water from the Fountain of Beauty so I can never grow old and shall get prettier every year. Oh no. So far it's not. I'm seeing something else. Think about who made the problems last time. It wasn't the king that made the problems last time, it was the friends. Then Charming's enemies said to the king, It is a wonder that you are not jealous. The queen thinks there is nobody in the world like Charming, as if anybody you had sent could not have done as much. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, we were both right. Okay. It is quite true now, I come to think of it, said the king. Let him be chained, hand and foot, and thrown into the tower. King, he turned her down for you. I do this for you, Kermie. Ugh. So they took Charming, and as a reward for having served the king so faithfully, he was shut up in the tower. He really can't catch a break. Where he only saw the jailer, who brought him a piece of black bread and a pitcher of water every day. However, little Frisk came to console him and told him all the news. Ah, good. At least he's got the news. And now I'm imagining little Frisk sitting at a news counter, like setting his papers, being the little newsman announcer. Ugh. When pretty Goldilocks heard what had happened, she threw herself at the king's feet and begged him to set Charming free. But the more she cried, the more angry he was. And at last she saw that it was useless to say any more, but it made her very sad. Then the king took it into his head that perhaps he was not handsome enough to please the princess, and he thought he would bathe his face in the water from the Fountain of Beauty, which was in the flask on a shelf in the princess's room, where she had placed it, that she might see it often. Yeah, little pout frog. Now it happened that one of the princess's one of the princess's ladies, in chasing a spider, had knocked the flask off the shelf and broken it. Oh my gosh, and every drop of the water had been spilt. Not knowing what to do, she hastily swept away the pieces of crystal and then remembered that in the king's room she had seen a flask of exactly the same shape, also filled with sparkling water. So without saying a word, she fetched it and stood it upon the queen's shelf. Yes, although he doesn't know this just yet. He's going to have to wait for the Frisk news channel for afterwards. Oh, Fetster, you're on it. I mean, how else would this story end happily? Now. Yay, little dino. Thank you, we love you. Okay. Now, the water in this flask was what was used in the kingdom for getting rid of troublesome people. Instead of having their heads cut off in the usual way, their faces were bathed with the water, and they instantly fell asleep and never woke up anymore. Oh my gosh, thank you for that subscription. There's a frog. Enjoy your frogs. Alright, so instead of getting their heads cut off, they would wash their face with this water and never wake up again. So when the king, thinking to improve his beauty, took the flask and sprinkled the water upon his face, he fell asleep and nobody could wake him. Little Frisk was first to hear the news, and he ran to tell Charming, who sent him to beg the princess not to forget the poor prisoner. All the palace was in confusion on account of the king's death, but Tiny Frisk made his way through the crowd to the princess's side and said, "Madam, do not forget poor Charming." Then she remembered all he had done for her, and without saying a word went up straight to the tower, and with her own hands took off the Charming's chains. Then, putting a golden crown upon his head and the royal mantle upon his shoulders, she said, "Come, faithful Charming, I make you king, and will take you for my husband." Immediately gets subbed. Yeah. It's happening. Oh, I misread that. He's getting subbed in, I think, like substituted, I think is what's gonna happen. But yeah, it was very good timing for Sleepiest Sheepy. "Come, faithful Charming, I will make you king and make you my husband." Charming, once more free and happy, fell at her feet and thanked her for her gracious words. I'm sure he's just like, "Thanks for not letting me stay here." He's really like, I don't know, the rest of it is whatever. Everybody was delighted that he should be king, and the wedding, which took place at once, was the prettiest that can be imagined, 'cause they pretty, and Prince Charming and Princess Goldilocks lived happily ever after. Yes, thanks for not trying to send me on 3 more quests to prove myself again. Thanks for taking me out of this dungeon that I never, in any case, deserved to be in, but went twice. Thanks for, not forgetting me after all that. The kingship is something, but not dead. Not dead is good. That's the kind of energy I think he's walking into that marriage with. But that is the end of that story, so the end. Happy ending. Woohoo. Oh my gosh. It was a bit of a roller coaster. But I honestly, a piece of me wants to write up the screenplay for this, because this could be a cute story. Imagine something related to that Dungeons and Dragons movie that is this. Actually, oh my gosh, I'm not even kidding. I know one of the co-writers from that, because I can't tell you. Let's say I had a hand. Anyway, and so I can maybe go bug somebody about that. This would be a very cool movie, I think. Cast that man. Nick Holt, I think his name is. I just remembered. Let's see. That's it. Nick Holt. Nicholas Holt. That's the guy I was thinking of that I thought could play this character very well. Oh my gosh. What a story. Our little corner of the forest gets some things done. Let's just say that. Hi, Snowy Dazer. Hello. Alright. This is our in-between things. I have an ad that wants to start fairly soon, so I'm just gonna run it now while we're in between stories. And it's an easy timing for it, so I'm sorry for the ads, folks. I haven't been able to fully turn them off, but I'm trying to rearrange them. But here we go. Well, I thought that I could only have the pre-running instead of the ones that also interrupt in the middle, but I was wrong. So I'm trying to do what I can to organize that, because specifically this little corner of streaming, it doesn't go well to have these ads that are loud pop in when we're all so quiet. So you gotta make sure you warn everybody, like, hey, just so y'all know, it's about to be annoying. brace yourselves, turn down the headphone volume or whatever. Anyway. Wouldn't that be funny if I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make this a movie, and then the ad for the movie. Clearly me and Vi immediately got to some spell making, like yeah, pre-rolls are definitely easier to pull off. It just makes it easier. And I realized when I hit the 1 minute long ad, it gave me a whole 2 hours to read before I was gonna force another ad on us. So I think that's what I'll do in the next one. Let an ad run in the starting soon time so that it'll give me more time to read. And yes, let's do some humming. That sounds great. I'm just gonna take a minute to set the stuff up. But then yes, we'll do humming. And any other trigger requests, drop them in the chats. I had to adjust that. I knew she would do all the face planting. Yeah, I don't get that, but okay. Alright. Hello, Doomda. Well, welcome back, Cage Nightwind. I'll do one more short little song, and then I'll be moving to the page ruffling from Betster's request. Yeah, Dimda, that was Beethoven. It was for Elise. It's one of my favorites to hum. I have a specific list of non-copyrighted songs that are my favorites to hum, because I have to remind myself ones that I probably shouldn't hum because copyrights when I put these up on YouTube. But these ones are all safe, so I like to do for Elise. Beethoven's always great. Yeah. Alright, we'll move on to page ruffling. That's an interesting suggestion, Cage Nightwind. What could probably work is if you hum the harmonies to songs like that, which if you learned the harmonies before the main tune, then that wouldn't be so hard. But yeah, that's why singing harmony, being in a choir like that, that stuff is really hard to actually do. But alright, that was the little book, and here's the bigger book. Alright, there was page ruffling. I hope that you liked that one, and if there's any other trigger requests, you can drop those, or we can move on to the next story. Either one, let me know. Yeah, those are all nice ones. Those are all nice songs. Thank you, Chrissy. 1 a.m. trying to sleep? Yeah. I mean, that's like the bread and butter of stream for ASMR people, isn't it? Continue lurking. Yeah, everybody be nice and say have a good night, rest well. That's very sweet of you guys. Hopefully we see you lots, Kirsty, and if you fall asleep or you have to go, no worries, but we love to have a lurker. Alright. How about, would you guys like one more? Death Noah, don't be mean. It's not the vibe. It's a lurker though, I get you. If we'd like to get back to reading, or if we'd like another trigger, somebody tell me, or I will decide at random. And it might be not what people wanted, and I don't want to do that, but I'll do it. Alright, sounds good, Dinda. Yes, I am bigger in numbers right now, that's very nice. Brushing. Okay, Dinda, I'll try. I don't know what that means exactly, but I'll try. Brushing I will do. Alright. That's how we spell that. Thank you. Alright, here's some brushing. Alright, that would be the brushing. Okay, I will say goodnight to those that are lurking and trying to sleep. And also, I realized, Kirsty, I didn't properly say thank you for following, and I have 3 more followers from when I started tonight, so thank you for those follows, everybody. Alright, so the next story is called The History of Whittington, which is interesting, but also it sounds so very British that helps remind us that this section of stories that I've been reading is, of course, must be something very British as well. Why we had that sanitization of the clearly a bunch of Greek stories mashed together. What? Not Whittington. Whittington. Yes. Okay. There we go. Oh, Cage Night would never worry about that. Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely do that. Make sure you're safe and warm. Make sure everything's alright. Good luck with the blizzard. That's going to be an adventure for you, I'm sure. And never worry if you're away from keyboard. That's all fine. I'm just here to entertain you if you want to. So you owe me nothing. All right. Stay cozy. Stay safe. Yeah, exactly. Streams can wait. Just stay careful. All right. That's good. Okay. No, I'm nervous for you, and my instinct is like, okay, do you have all these things? You have this packed away, but if it's starting up soon, you kind of gotta just get yourself in place right now. But you probably know what you're doing, and I'll let you be. Oh my gosh. This is gonna be a giggler, I think. This story is gonna be something. The very first word of this story, I'm always giggling at these ones a little bit because the way the wordings are and like old connotations for things are much more clean than we have now. But anyway, of course we want everybody safe and alright in this community, especially if you're someone I've met here and I know you. I'll hope you're doing well. Okay. Here's the story. Dick Whittington. Dick Whittington was a very little boy when his father and mother died. So he was just a little Dick. It's just a little one. I'm gonna enjoy this so much. It's gonna be awful. Okay, anyway. So little, indeed, that he never knew them, nor the place he was born. He strolled about the country as ragged as a colt, so he's a wild Dick, a wild little Dick. Okay. Oh yeah, Cage Nightwind, if you gotta go, you gotta go. I'll be putting this up tonight on YouTube, so you will be able to find it. You'll have access. He wandered about the country as ragged as a colt, till he met with a wagoner who was going to London, and who gave him leave to walk all the way by side of his wagon without paying anything for his passage. Are you telling me that he would have made someone pay to walk by the wagon? Not be in the wagon, just walk next to it? What a frickin'... Okay. Yeah, they will tonight, you just know. Okay, cool. Stay safe. Alright. Anyway, this pleased little Whittington very much, and I appreciate that that's how they're referring to him, or else we would not get through the story. As he wanted to see London, but all of you can giggle if you want to do that. Every time I say little Whittington, it really means little Dick. Anyway, as he wanted to see London, sadly, for he had heard that the streets were paved with gold, and he was willing to get a bushel of it. But how great was his disappointment, poor boy, so he's a stupid little ragged Dick. He was very disappointed when he saw the streets covered with dirt instead of gold, and found himself in a strange place, without a friend, without food, and without money. Yes, Turtle Boy. Oh Though the wagoner was so charitable as to let him walk by the side of the wagon for nothing, he took care not to know him when he came to town, and the poor boy was, in little time, so cold and hungry that he wished himself in a kitchen and by a warm fire in the country. Yeah, everybody, everybody. Okay. In his distress, he asked charity of several people, and one of them bid him go to work for an idle rogue. That I will, said Whittington. With all my heart I will work for you if you will let me. Who needs a little dick? Who needs a little dick? Little dick for some money, please. Okay. The man who thought this savored of wit and impertinence, though the poor lad intended only to show his readiness for work, gave him a blow with a stick which broke his head so that the blood ran down. Oh no! They're beating up little Dick Whittington. Oh no! In this situation, and fainting for want of food, he laid himself down at the door of one Mr. Fitzwarren, a merchant, where the cook saw him, and being an ill-natured hussy, ordered him to go about his business, or she would scold him. Oh my god. Gave him a blow. Well, that is a long sheep. That's not our little Whittington, I can promise you. Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay, but then he's laid down at Mr. Fitzwarren, where the cook saw him, and being an ill-natured hussy, ordered him to go about his business, or she would scold him. The hussy. Okay. At this time, Mr. Fitzwarren came home from the exchange, and began also to scold at the poor boy, bidding him to go to work. This poor kid's like, where? I don't work where? Whittington answered that he should be glad to work if anyone would employ him, and that he should be able to get some victuals to eat. What is victuals? That sounds, oh no. I will take a moment to search victuals. Food or provisions, good, but it's like, that was such a weird word. Victuals to eat, for he had nothing for 3 days, and he was a poor country boy, and knew nobody, and nobody would employ him. To some degree also, like this poor little boy, who in my joking was like, hey, anybody wanna pay me, who wanna pay for some little dick, that he was just like on their door, and so they're like shooing away the little hoe. Like, what? Anyway, okay. He then endeavored to get up, but he was so very weak that he fell down again, which excited so much compassion in the merchant that he ordered the servants to take him in and give him some meat and drink, and let him help the cook to do any dirty work that she had to set him about. Every single word. Other stories I will see some words, but this one is just going to be so much worse. Dirty work? It was dirty work? Anyway. People are too apt to reproach those who beg with being idle, but give themselves no concern to put them in the way of getting business to do, or consider whether they are able to do it, which is not charity. Hey, I want to copy and paste that and put that everywhere. That is a very good thing to think of. Like sudden left turn, very nice for the good thing to consider for people that are homeless or in dire straits, that you want to blame them first without considering their situations. But anyway, how nice. And they literally say, but we return to Whittington. Yeah, exactly, the little cows. Okay, but we return to Whittington, who could have lived happy in this worthy family had he not been bumped about by the cross cook, who must be always roasting and basting, or when the spit was idle, employed her hands upon poor Whittington. So when her hands weren't busy, she busied them with the little Dick. Okay. At last, Miss Alice, the master's daughter, was informed of it, and then she took compassion on the poor boy, and made the servants treat him kindly. Good. Okay. Besides the crossness of the cook, Whittington had another difficulty to get over before he could be happy. He had, by order of his master, a flock bed placed for him in a garret, where there was a number of rats and mice that often ran over the poor boy's nose and disturbed him in his sleep. After some time, however, a gentleman who came to his master's house gave Whittington a penny for brushing his shoes. This he put into his pocket, being determined to lay it out to the best advantage. And the next day, seeing a woman in the street with a cat under her arm, he ran up to know the price of it. The woman, as the cat was a good mouser, asked a deal of money for it, but on Whittington's tell her he had but a penny in the world, and that he wanted a cat sadly, she let him have it. Okay, so the little Dick found some pussy. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? I'm all right. How are you? We're just still reading this very odd book, so hold on. This cat Whittington concealed in the garret, for fear she should be beat about by his mortal enemy, the cook. The cook, beaten on little Dick and beaten on pussy. And here she soon killed or frightened away the rats and mice. The cat did good. Okay, so the poor boy could now sleep as sound as a top. Sleeping as sound as a top was a thing in another story, and I giggled at it every time, and here it is in this one. Oh my god, this freaking... Someone help me. So now the poor boy, little Dick, can now sleep as sound as a top, with his pussy in the corner. Soon after this, the merchant, who had a ship ready to sail, called for his servants, as his custom was, in order that each of them might venture something to try their luck, and whatever they sent was to pay neither freight nor custom, for he thought justly that God Almighty would bless him the more for his readiness to let the poor partake of his fortune. Yeah, all the giggles, face plants, and laughs, everybody. All the servants appeared but poor Whittington, who, having neither money nor goods, could not think of sending anything to try his luck. But his good friend Miss Alice, thinking his poverty kept him away, ordered him to be called. Then she offered to lay down something for him, but the merchant told his daughter that would not do. It must be something of his own. Upon which poor Whittington said he had nothing but a cat, which he bought for a penny that was given him. Fetch that cat, boy, said the merchant, and send her. Whittington brought the poor pussy and delivered her to the captain with tears in his eyes. Okay. For he said he should now be disturbed by the rats and mice as much as ever. All the company laughed at the adventure, but Miss Alice, who pitied the poor boy, and gave him something to buy another cat. Yeah, pretty much the vibe. While Puss was beating the billows at sea, poor Whittington was severely beaten at home by his tyrannical mistress, the cook. Oh my god. Who used him so cruelly, and made such a game of him for sending his cat to sea. That at last the poor boy determined to run away from his place, and having packed up the few things he had, he set out very early in the morning on All Hallows Day. So now it's a spooky story. It's Halloween. He traveled as far as Holloway, and there sat down on a stone to consider what course he should take. But while he was thus ruminating, bow bells, of which there were only 6, began to ring, and he thought of their sounds and he thought their sounds addressed him in this manner. Turn again, Whittington, thrice Lord Mayor of London. Lord Mayor of London. Lord Mayor Dick Whittington of London. Oh my God, said he to himself. What would not one endure to be Lord Mayor of London and ride in such a fine coach? Well, I'll go back again and bear all the pummeling and ill usage of Cicely, I guess that's her name, the cook, rather than miss the opportunity of being Lord Mayor. So home he went and happily got into the house and about his business before Miss Cicely made her appearance. We must now follow Miss Puss to the coast of Africa. How perilous are voyages at sea, how uncertain the winds and waves, and how many accidents attend a naval life. Oh my gosh. The ship that had the cat on board was long beaten at sea, and at last, by contrary winds, driven on part of the coast of Barbary, which was inhabited by Moors unknown to the English. These people received our countrymen with civility, and therefore the captain, in order to trade with them, showed them the patterns of the goods he had on board, and sent some of them to the king of the country, who was so well pleased that he sent for the captain and the factor to come to his palace, which was about a mile from the sea. Here they were placed, according to the custom of the country, on rich carpets, flowered with gold and silver, and the king and queen being seated at the upper end of the room, dinner was brought in, which consisted of many dishes, but no sooner were the dishes put down, but an amazing number of rats and mice came from all quarters and devoured all the meat in an instant. Those are some pretty fast rats. And the factor, in surprise, turned round to the nobles and asked if these vermin were not offensive. Oh yes, said they, very offensive, and the king would give half his treasure to be freed of them, for they not only destroy his dinner, as you see, but they assault him in his chamber, and even in bed, so that he is obliged to be watched while he is sleeping for fear of them. The factor jumped for joy. He remembered poor Whittington and his cat, told the king he had a creature on board the ship that would dispatch all these vermin immediately. But, you kind of need 2 of these cats if you're going to be leaving them around so that they can make more cats, shouldn't they? Anyway. The king's heart heaved so high at the joy which this news gave him that his turban dropped off his head. He was so surprised his hat fell off. Bring this creature to me, said he. Vermin are dreadful in a court, and if she will perform what you say, I will load your ship with gold and jewels in exchange for her. The factor, who knew his business, took this opportunity to set forth the merits of Miss Puss. That's how you're going to call her. He told his majesty that it would be inconvenient to part with her. When she was gone, the rats and mice might destroy the goods in the ship, but to oblige his majesty he would fetch her. Run, run, said the queen, I am impatient to see the dear creature. Away flew the factor while another dinner was providing, and returned with the cat just as the rats and mice were devouring that also. He immediately put down Miss Puss, who killed a great number of them. The king rejoiced so greatly to see his old enemies destroyed by so small a creature, and the queen was highly pleased, and desired that the cat be brought near, that she might look at her. Upon which the factor called, Pussy, 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 and she ran to him. No, then she came to him. He then presented her to the queen, who started back and was afraid to touch a creature who had made such havoc among the rats and mice. When the factor stroked the cat and called Pussy, pussy, the queen also touched her and cried Putty, putty, for she had not learned English. He then put her down on the queen's lap, where she, purring, played with her majesty's hand, and then sang herself to sleep. The king, having seen the exploits of Miss Puss, and being informed that her kittens would stock the whole country, so at some point Miss Puss got some action, because she's got kittens. Whatever. Okay. kittens would stock the whole country, bargained with the captain and factor for the whole ship's cargo, and then gave them 10 times as much for the cat as all the rest amounted to. On which, taking leave of their majesties and other great personages at court, they sailed with a fair wind for England, whither we must now attend them. So now they're coming back. Sorry. The morn had scarcely dawned when Mr. Fitzwarren arose to count over the cash and settle the business for that day. He had just entered the counting-house and seated himself at the desk when somebody came tap-tap at the door. "Who's there?" said Mr. Fitzwarren. "A friend," answered the other. "What friend can come at this unseasonable time?" "A real friend is never unseasonable." "Oh, just get to it," answered the door. I come to bring you good news of your ship, Unicorn." The frickin' ship was called Unicorn. Okay. The merchant bustled up in such a hurry that he forgot his gout. So I guess he's like, doesn't even care about the pain. Instantly opened the door, and who should be seen waiting but the captain and factor, with a cabinet of jewels and a bill of lading, for which the merchant lifted up his eyes and thanked heaven for sending him such a prosperous voyage. Then they told him the adventures of the cat, and showed him the cabinet of jewels which they had brought for Mr. Whittington, upon which he cried out with great earnestness, but not in the most poetical manner, "Go send him in, and tell him of his fame, and call him Mr. Whittington by name." So the thing just said, he called out, but not very poetically, and then said something very rhyming and poetic. So I have to imagine, "Go get Dick, is what he really said. And then then it says, "It is not our business to animadvert upon these lines. We are not critics, but historians. It is sufficient for us that they are the words for Mr. Fitzwarren." So they're saying, that's probably not him, but we're going to say that that's him. That's literally what they're saying right now. "And though it is beside our purpose and perhaps not in our power to prove him a good poet, we shall soon convince the reader that he was a good man." Oh gosh, they're just making it up. They're like, hey, it's okay, okay? All right. So they know full well what they're doing with this story. Good man, which was a much better character, for when some who were present told him that this treasure was too much for such a poor boy as Whittington, he said, "God forbid that I should deprive him of a penny. It is his own, and he shall have it to a farthing." It's definitely self-aware. He then ordered Mr. Whittington in, who was at this time cleaning the kitchen, and would have excused himself from going into the counting-house, saying the room was swept and his shoes were dirty and full of hobnails. The merchant, however, made him come in, and ordered a chair to be set for him, upon which, thinking they intended to make sport of him— oh no, what does that mean? What does he think they're going to do to him on a chair? As had been too often the case in the kitchen. Oh my god. Are you telling me that the cook literally— oh my god. I think this story is saying that the cook literally R-worded that little boy. Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, he besought his master not to mock a poor simple fellow who intended them no harm, but let him go about his business. The merchant, taking him by the hand, said, "Indeed, Mr. Whittington, I am in earnest with you, and sent for you to congratulate you on your great success. That's not what we're doing, we promise. Your cat has procured you more money than I am worth in the world, and may you long enjoy it and be happy." At length, being shown the treasure, and convinced by them that all of it belonged to him, he fell upon his knees and thanked the Almighty for his providential care of such a poor and miserable creature. Miserable little Dick. He then laid all the treasure at his master's feet, who refused to take any part of it, but told him he heartily rejoiced at his prosperity, and hoped the wealth he had acquired would be a comfort to him and would make him happy. He then applied to his mistress, and told his good friend Miss Alice, who refused to take any part of the money, but told him she heartily rejoiced at his good success and wished him all imaginable felicity. He then gratified the captain, factor, and ship's crew for the care they had taken of his cargo. He likewise distributed presents to all the servants in the house, not forgetting even his old enemy the cook, though she little deserved it. Honestly, if Mr. Fitzwarren is such a good man as they were trying to say, he wouldn't keep that freaking awful cook in the house. Anyway, after this, Miss Fitzwarren advised Mr. Whittington to send for the necessary people and dress himself like a gentleman, and made him the offer of his house to live in till he could provide himself with a better. Now it came to pass when Mr. Whittington's face was washed, his hair curled, and he dressed in a rich suit of clothes, he turned out to be a genteel young fellow. So now he's a pretty little dick. As wealth contributes much to give a man confidence. And now he's confident. He in a little time dropped that sheepish behavior. It was a shy little thing. Anyway, which he was principally occasioned by a depression of spirits, and soon grew a sprightly and good companion, insomuch that Miss Alice, who had formerly pitied him, now fell in love with him. When her father perceived they had this good liking for each other, he proposed a match between them, to which both parties cheerfully consented, and the Lord Mayor, Court of Aldermen, yeah, looks like he did. Okay, the Lord Mayor, Court of Aldermen, Sheriffs, and the Company of Stationers, the Royal Academy of Arts, and a number of eminent merchants attended the ceremony, and were elegantly treated at an entertainment made for that purpose. So, like, all of the richest people. History further relates that they lived very happily, had several children, and died at a good old age. So he did get to be an old little dick. Mr. Whittington served as Sheriff of London and was 3 times Lord Mayor. In the last year of his mayoralty, he entertained King Henry V and his queen after his conquest of France, upon which occasion the king, in consideration of Whittington's merit, said, "Never had prince such a subject," which being told to Whittington at the table, he replied, "Never had subject such a king." His Majesty, out of respect to his good character, conferred the honor of knighthood on him soon after. So literally just because he gave a compliment, he got knighthood. Wow. Sir Richard, now they're calling him Sir Richard, Sir Dick, many years before his death, constantly fed a great number of poor citizens, built a church and college to it, with a yearly allowance for poor scholars, and near it erected a hospital. He also built Newgate for criminals, and gave liberally to St. Bartholomew's Hospital and other public charities. So this one is very interesting because it's just like literally, I think, supposed to be an actual history. It's so funny. They had to have been originally writing Dick Whittington a bunch, and then in 1889, this publishing, Andrew Lang, the editor, must have been like, "Oh, clean it up, get rid of that," but didn't fully get rid of things because that was literally the man's name, and the whole point of the story was to be doing this. Again, I bet things like this was the story, and this is how it got sanitized. But you couldn't clean that dick well enough, I guess. Still a little dirty. But okay. How was that? What fun. The History of Whittington. The end. Does anybody want to chat or ask for a trigger? Oh, wow. sister. Where'd you find it? I'm looking myself. No, stop it. Dick Whittington and his cat. Is the other. Yeah, so this story is from 1354 to 1423. Or at least that was his life. Wow. I found Wikipedia for that one, but I'm sure there's a better spot to find it. Yeah, exactly what I found. Yep. Yeah, there it is. Rags to riches story. Wow. The earliest chapbook versions was in 1656. That's nice. Yeah, you can send the link for everybody if anybody wants to see some of that. I think that's a great one to share. I see the statue of him with his cat. That's cute. And yeah, we can do some dice. I'll set things up. But wow. What a fun story. Okay, let's set up dice. Oh wow, look at that. That's the full story. Oh wow, that's a long song in that story. Oh wow. That's so fun. Thanks for that link. Okay, yeah, dice. Getting distracted. Sorry. just picking up that dice, so my avatar will likely faceplant a bunch. But if there's any other trigger requests, go ahead and put them in, or we will move on to the next story. Ah yes, the chain. The chain is new. And that would be the chain. So there you go for that one. It was a new one I tried. I thought that it was alright. I'm just scanning. Death, and now I look at all those little doggos, or seals. Sea doggos. Very doggo energy still. Little rat salute. Trying to see if any of these are short enough. We have a lot less time. Oh, this is perfect length. Okay. Dancing with our friends. If there's no other triggers, I have another story, but I'll give you guys a moment. We were busy putting in emotes, so I understand. More little seals. Okay, then I guess we will do the next story. And it's a short one, but we are going to have to wrap up for this stream soon. I'll be back in just a couple hours after. But yeah, here we go with, this one is called Toads and Diamonds. So I'll just set that up. And another. Oop. Toads and diamonds. Do. There we are. Okay. Oh, nice rainbow ducks. It'll be fun. There was, once upon a time, a widow who had 2 daughters. The eldest was so much like her father, so much like her in the face and humor that whoever looked upon the daughter saw the mother. They were both so disagreeable and so proud that there was no living with them. The younger, who was the very picture of her father for courtesy and sweetness of temper, was withal one of the most beautiful girls ever seen. Uh-oh. I know that we have read this before. It was under a different title, and it is very similar, but this started off literally the same with a different. Okay. If anyone can remember me starting off a story with there was one daughter that was very like her mother, and there was one daughter that was very like her father, and yet the mother referred to one as ill-bred. I don't remember the rest of the story. I just remember that was ridiculous. And that is happening again. I saw the line. She will call her ill-bred. If you can remember which one it is, Death Note, tell me, but I don't remember which one it is that went this way. Okay. I'm sure we have done it. I just don't know which story it was. And it definitely wasn't under Toads and Diamonds. Oh, I remember now. What was it under? What name was it? Let's see if I can find it before we go on. I don't know what it would have been called. But I know exactly what's going to happen. So, alright, here we go. Here we are. So, the one is very much like the mother, and the other is like the father. And like the father is very sweet and pretty, and the mother is very nasty and mean. The youngest is the one that's nice. Right. As the people naturally love their own likeness, this mother even doted on her eldest daughter, and at the same time had a horrible aversion for the youngest. She made her eat in the kitchen and work continually. The fairies? It might have been called The Fairy. You're right. That might have been it. Yeah, and here she is hating on the kid that looks like her husband, but like, then why were you with him? Like, you chose that. I don't know what to tell you, girl. Alright. Among other things, this poor child was forced twice a day to draw water above 1.5 miles off the house and bring home a pitcher full of it. One day, she was at this fountain, and there came a poor woman who begged her to let her drink. "Oh, I, with all my heart, goody," said this pretty little girl, and rinsing immediately the pitcher, she took up some water from the clearest place of the fountain and gave it to her, holding up the pitcher all the while that she might drink the easier. The good woman, having drunk, said to her, "You are so very pretty, my dear, so good and so mannerly that I cannot help giving you a gift." For this was a fairy who had taken the form of a poor country woman to see how far the civility and good manners of this pretty girl would go. "I will give you a gift for a gift," continued the fairy, "that at every word you speak there shall come out of your mouth either a flower or a jewel." When this pretty girl came home, her mother scolded her for saying so
for staying so long at the fountain. Hello, Archer. Welcome back. We're just reading the story that I have definitely read before, but under a different name and slightly different wording. Okay. Mom is scolding her, and she says, I beg your pardon, Mama. I beg your pardon, Mama, said the poor girl, for not making more haste. So 10 words. And in speaking these 10 words, there came out of her mouth 2 roses, 2 pearls, and 2 diamonds, which is only 2, 4, 6. So she is short 4 things. Rude. You said every word of your mouth, every word out of your mouth will come a jewel or a flower. The math is not mathing. I had the same critique, but I was less vocal about it last time. What is it I see there? Said the mother, quite astonished. I think I see pearls and diamonds come out of the girl's mouth. How happens this, child? This was the first time she had ever called her child. Ah, look at this. The only time math was not matching or mathing. You're very right, Arthur. Archer, what? Anyway. So the first time she ever calls her child is when there's pretty things coming out of her face. All right. The poor creature told her frankly all the matter, not without dropping out infinite numbers of diamonds. I'm sorry. I did say Arthur instead of Archer. I didn't mean to. We did the same thing where we swapped the ch for thuz, mathing to matching, Archer to Arthur. I was just doing what you did. Okay. In good faith, cried the mother. No, I'm sorry. But thank you for using the frog. Okay. In good faith, cried the mother, I must send my child thither. Come hither, Fanny. The mean girl is called Fanny. Look what comes out of thy sister's mouth when she speaks. Wouldst not thou be glad, my dear, to have the same gift given thee? Thou hast nothing else to do but go and draw water out of the fountain, and when a certain poor woman asks you to let her drink, to give it to her very civilly. I'm about to laugh so much because I know what's going to happen to Fanny. And last time that was not her name, and I was guessing that, like, something else awful would come out of her mouth. And now I'm just thinking of that and the implications of it coming out of Fanny. I'm giggling. The last story we had was just a bunch of words that, you could interpret differently now. And we're all giggly and stupid and immature, so I'm thinking in that same vein still. Alright, so she says to do that. Yeah. It would be very fine sight indeed, said this ill-bred minx, to see me go draw water. Okay, so now I thought that the mother was calling someone else ill-bred. This time, yeah, stupid. This time, the story is calling the mean girl ill-bred. And so does the story realize if she is ill-bred, that the one who is nice is also ill-bred? Because ill-mannered is very different from ill-bred. Like, what are you saying? Anyway, okay. And then the mother, oh my gosh, she about to get real wrecked. Just wait a second, because this is what her own mother says. You shall go, hussy, said the mother, and this minute. I thought you liked that one. Why are you saying that? That was the one you liked and was nice to. What the hell? So we've got the slight changes in this, or we are roasting Fanny, who now has that name. It's just a tie. So away she went, but grumbling all the way, taking with her the best silver tankard in the house. Exactly. She was no sooner at the fountain. Yeah. She was no sooner at the fountain than she saw coming out of the wood a lady most gloriously dressed, who came up to her and asked to drink. This was, you must know, the very fairy who appeared to her sister, but now had taken the air and dress of a princess to see how far this girl's rudeness would go. Am I come hither, said the proud, saucy one, they did call her saucy last time, I'm pretty sure, to serve you with water, pray? I suppose the silver tankard was brought purely for your ladyship, was it? However, you may drink out of it, if you have a fancy. You are not over and above mannerly, answered the fairy, without putting herself in a passion. Well then, since you have so little breeding, again, that's not, I think they mean manners, whatever, but anyway, and you are so disobliging, I give for you a gift, that at every word you speak there shall come out of your mouth a snake or a toad. That's why it's called Toads and Diamonds. And again, last time I was thinking that it was going to be like mud or, looking like mud that comes out of her face. But anyway, so as soon as her mother saw her coming, she cried out, Well, daughter, well mothered, answered the pert hussy, throwing out of her mouth 2 vipers and 2 toads. So she's thrown 4 out of her mouth instead of 2. The math is still awful. But maybe it came with like translation, that the other version of it, a different language, those things are a different number. Oh, mercy, cried the mother. What is it I see? Sorry. Oh, it is that wretch, her sister, who has occasioned all this. But she shall pay for it. And immediately she ran to beat her. The poor child fled away from her and went to hide herself in the forest not far from thence. So Mom then is saying, my favorite is saying bad things. I blame you. Let's go beat her ass. What? The king's son then on his return from hunting met her, and seeing her so very pretty, asked her what she did there all alone and why she cried. Alas, sir, my mamma has turned me out of doors. Another 10 words. The king's son, who saw 5 or 6 pearls and as many diamonds come out of her mouth, it's 5 each, thank you, desired to tell him how that happened. She thereupon told him the whole story, and so the king's son fell in love with her, and considering himself that was such a gift was worth more than any marriage portion, her diamonds and flowers are a better dowry than any other dowries given, conducted her to the palace of the king's father, and there married her. As for the sister, she made herself so much hated that her own mother turned her off, and the miserable wretch, having wandered about a good while without finding anybody to take her in, went to a corner of the wood and there died. But nothing to say of the mom, who was awful too. So anyway, the end. That was Toads and Diamonds. Wow. But there you go. And that was the last story of this stream. Really though. Yeah, it probably was the fairy that was that story. We could look. I don't want to lose that. I'll have to do a couple of... I don't want to lose my place in the next list, because we're going through the blue fairy book right now, and I'm going through all of those, but I think it's the fairy. Yep. Yeah, it was the fairy. That was the one that did that. And they did, I'm pretty sure, give someone a name. Nope. No name on Fanny in this one.
But yeah, and the math didn't work then. Oh no, wait, yep. Her name was Fanny and the other one too. I didn't realize. Alright, there you go. But it was the fairy that had the same thing, so that's interesting. Just more proof that there's different versions that have just the slightest differences because someone heard it slightly differently and wrote it down differently, or they didn't remember it quite the same. Oral histories, oral stories, they're going to change with each telling. Get more unhinged or less unhinged based on whoever's telling and who they're telling to. There you go. Well, alright. This was the end of my stream. I'm going to be back on in a couple hours. So thank you everyone that was here. Thank you for the new follows I got. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye bye.